Hi, my name is Dr. Debby Sneed. I teach classics at California State University in Long Beach, and my main research focus is on physical disability in ancient Greece. In my research, I look at disability and specifically physical disability in ancient Greece. And my big questions are about the lives and experiences of disabled people, how they lived, and importantly for my research, how they were understood and situated by their communities. The article that I published in Antiquity was about accommodations for people with mobility impairments at ancient Greek religious sanctuaries. I looked at the distribution of permanent stone ramps that were built at religious sanctuaries in ancient Greece and found a preponderance of these ramps at so-called healing sanctuaries, the most famous one being the sanctuary of Asclepius at Epidaurus. By looking at the distribution of ramps, as well as other evidence, including inscriptions from Epidaurus, I was able to argue that the ramps were intentionally built to assist visitors who came to the sanctuary with mobility impairments, including not just disabled people, but also pregnant women, elderly people, and small children. The archaeological evidence for disability in ancient Greece is quite varied. We have statues and figurines, including a whole corpus of figurines from the Hellenistic period that we unfortunately refer to as grotesque figurines, showing human bodies of all sorts. We have vase paintings, including one of my favorites, which I had reproduced by an artisan in the modern city of ancient Corinth, which shows a man with dwarfism talking to another man in a doctor's clinic. We have prosthetic devices that survive in the archaeological record, including one from a burial dated to about 300 BCE in Capua, Italy, that shows a man with a lower limb prosthesis. And finally, we have skeletal evidence of people who lived and died in ancient Greece with physical disabilities. As non-disabled people, we tend to take for granted issues of access. It really doesn't matter to us how we enter a building because no matter what exists, stairs or a ramp, we can enter it just the same. And so when archaeologists, especially non-disabled archaeologists, encountered the remains of ramps in ancient Greece, they just weren't thinking of disability-related questions because disability wasn't a part of their regular life experience. It just didn't come to mind. And so I think that that really contributes, right? The people who are asking the questions really contributes to what kinds of questions get asked, which is why diversity is so important in archaeological research, in any research really, is that with different kinds of people, you're going to get different kinds of questions that are asked. You're also going to get different interpretations that are suggested. And so I think that that's probably the biggest contributing factor to why evidence for disability accommodations in general, but these ramps in particular, even though we've known about the ramps for a long time, that's what I think is the largest contributor to why this type of argument has been overlooked. So I decided to publish this article with Antiquity because of the broad reach of archaeologists that it has. One of the important points for me with this research is that ancient Greeks were humans. They had human bodies, and as such, physical disability is going to exist in ancient Greece, right? And that's true of any society made up of humans. And that is that physical disability is a natural and normal part of the human experience. And so there are going to be disabled people in every culture. And what I wanted to do with the article is to demonstrate that by asking disability related questions, we can unlock different aspects of those societies that had previously been overlooked or ignored. And this is going to be true in every society. That doesn't mean that every society is going to treat disabled people positively or negatively or in any way that we could necessarily predict. But what it means is that they will have an understanding of disability and they will situate disability in one way or another. And that it's important to ask those questions because it definitely exists in those societies. When my article on ramps was published in Antiquity, I got a lot of different kinds of responses, largely positive from people within the disability community. And a lot of my friends and colleagues were very encouraging of this kind of research. But I also got a lot of skepticism and pushback on this argument from people who just don't believe that an ancient past, ancient Greece, where life was hard, could actually be considerate and kind and accommodating to people with disabilities. And I think that that's absolutely correct, right? That would be a very presentist argument to say that ancient Greeks were kind. I don't think that ancient Greeks were particularly kind and considerate to people with disabilities. I don't think that the ramps represent kindness in that way. I think that the ramps represent a very practical solution to a problem that they had, which was we have this religious sanctuary that's going to service people of all kinds, including a large number of people with mobility impairments. And so how do we make these spaces actually usable by the people that we intend them to serve? And so if you think about disability accommodations and accessibility as we do in the modern period as a gift that is bestowed by non-disabled people onto disabled people, then yes, that is not what's going on in ancient Greece, right? And ancient Greece is instead developing practical solutions to problems that they see as needing to be solved. I'm currently working on a book on physical disability in ancient Greece. And in the book, I look at the society, the sort of the structures of the society of ancient Greece, and question whether or not ancient Greece was an ableist society. And what I mean by that is following Fiona Kumari Campbell's discussions and definitions of ableism. And that is that whether or not the Greeks defined the self as non-disabled and therefore situated physically disabled people as other, or if physically disabled people were integrated into the ancient Greek idea or conception of the self. And where I'm leaning at this moment is that ancient Greece was not an ableist society, right? We have individual actors within ancient Greece who I think we could describe as having a negative or prejudicial attitude toward physical disability. People like Aristotle come to mind. But I think as a whole, and the ramps feed into this argument, as a whole, ancient Greek society tends to be very, not necessarily accepting, but they've integrated physical disability into their understanding of what constitutes what we would call normal, although the Greeks wouldn't have used that word.